What kind of printer is best for professional authors? Inkjet, LaserJet, EcoTank? Or could you avoid buying a printer altogether? Find out in this episode of Novel Marketing, the longest running book marketing podcast in the world. Now, the younger someone is, the less likely they are to own a printer. So, do authors even need a printer anymore? Well, having a printer is pretty useful for a few things. One, you can use it for drafting and proofreading manuscripts. Reading on paper gives you fresh eyes to spot typos. You will find more typos on paper than you will on a screen. It also allows you to listen to your computer read you your book while you're circling errors on the paper. Now, printing is also helpful for printing contracts and agreements. Not everyone uses DocuSign, and I have to print and sign at least one contract every year. Plus, you can use your printer to back up your book. The cloud going down won't wipe out your printed backup, and sometimes it's nice to have a hard copy. Also, you can print worksheets or guides for workshops or speeches that you're giving. Being able to print out a handout is very handy. It's also nice to be able to print branded newsletter sign-up sheets to use at events. And that's not to mention printing shipping labels, which you're like, I don't need those. But if you're sending out a lot of advanced reader copies or selling signed copies, being able to print shipping labels is a huge time saver, as is printing checks. Yes, it takes a little bit of time to figure out how to print a check, but it saves you a massive amount of time, both with writing the check and with bookkeeping later. So find out how to print checks. You'll be glad you did. Sure, there are authors who can get by without a printer. And you could do all of your proofing on your computer or on a Kindle Scribe, but the Kindle Scribe costs more than a decent laser printer. So you really have to be using it for more than just proofreading, or you'd save money buying a printer. And you could write all of your checks and your shipping labels by hand, and you could use a yellow legal pad for your sign-up sheets, but that's less professional. So for most authors, buying a good laser printer is still a smart investment. So let's talk about things that you should not use a printer for. So these are some common mistakes. And the first is printing promotional flyers or posters for your book. This is a terrible thing to print on your computer. You can print it at a higher quality and often at a lower cost at a print shop. In fact, I have a hack that I've been using for years. You can print glossy, full color, photo quality 4x6 photos at Walmart for 16 cents a photo, and you can get these ready in an hour. I've used these at conferences for decades, where I'll just print however many flyers I need, and I'll have them ready at Walmart to pick up. And they're often the highest quality flyers on the table. And at 16 cents a piece, you can get 200 high quality photos for $32, and they're ready in an hour. This is an unbelievably effective hack. And once you unlock it and learn how to print photos at your local Walmart or the Walmart nearest to the event that you're speaking at, your need for printing color flyers in your home office goes away. Another thing you don't want to print at home is business cards or bookmarks. These will look more professional and cost less if you print them at Vistaprint or Moo or even Walmart. Walmart offers a surprising number of printing services, actually. I have an entire episode on business cards and bookmarks that's packed with tips and tricks and strategies. If you know what you're doing, business cards can be a really great sales booster for you, and we break it down in that episode. So that's what you should not print. Now let's talk about what kind of printer you should not buy, and that is a color ink printer. Nothing an author needs to print at home requires a color printer, which is great because color printers are a terrible waste of money. I really hate inkjet printers for the following reasons. First, they have a bait and switch business model. So ink printers historically have been sold very cheap so that they can lock you into buying overpriced ink cartridges, which are insanely overpriced. So the ink in an ink cartridge costs about $75 per ounce, which, for some comparison, the cost of silver has skyrocketed in the last few months. It went from $30 an ounce to $50 an ounce. But even at $50 an ounce, it is still cheaper to buy pure silver than it is to buy printer cartridge ink. That's how overpriced it is. It can cost as much as 50 cents per page to print color at home on a cartridge-based printer. Even black and white on an inkjet printer can cost as much as 15 cents per page. That means you're looking at a cost of $45 to print a 300-page manuscript. That's just too expensive. And it's often cheaper to go to your local print shop than it is to print with ink cartridges at home. But wait, it gets worse. Ink not only is expensive, but it also dries out, which means if you only print occasionally, your printer won't work when you need it. Some authors buy a new inkjet printer every time they have a printing project, and this is terribly wasteful, especially when laser printers can last for over a decade. If you must go with ink, if you absolutely need color for some reason, I recommend that you go with the Epson EcoTank printer. EcoTank printers cost a lot less per page. They don't use cartridges, they use a tank of ink, and they can get down to 2 or 3 pennies per page. But the EcoTank printer itself still costs twice as much for the printer that an equivalent laser printer costs. So you're still paying a lot more money, and you're still paying potentially more money per page, which is why I recommend laser. And if you need to print color photos, just order glossy ones from Walmart. It's cheaper and it's higher quality. So what should you buy? A black and white laser printer. That's what I recommend, and these things last forever. There's no ink to dry out. They're super reliable. They're super fast. They can sit in your closet for years unused and still work just fine. And most laser printers accept generic toner, bringing the cost per page down to just a penny or less. My advice for my younger listeners is that it's time to buy a laser printer. And my advice for my older listeners is that it's time to ditch that color ink printer and get a cheaper, faster, and more reliable laser printer. So, which laser printer should you get? Let me break down the critical features that an author needs, and then I'll give you some specific recommendations. The number one most important feature for an author is something called duplex printing. This means that the printer can automatically print on both sides of the page. And this is critical because if you want to print a 300-page manuscript, if you print that single-sided, that's 300 sheets of paper. But if you print double-sided, it's only 150 sheets of paper. This is not just about saving money, it's about saving space. Paper is heavy and bulky, and double-sided printing reduces all of that by half. The next critical feature is a network jack. Sure, some printers have Wi-Fi, but I don't like to use it because setup is a hassle. And during the setup process for Wi-Fi is when they try to trick you into a subscription. I recommend just plugging your printer directly into your router or network switch. And this makes the setup way easier because it often just works when you plug it into your network. And it still allows everyone in the house to print to the printer wirelessly. So anybody on your wireless network can still print wirelessly to your printer, even though the printer is plugged in because it's plugged in to the wireless network. Yes, even phones and tablets can print to a printer plugged in to the router. If you do set up Wi-Fi, which is fine, just be very careful that they don't trick you into getting a subscription. Speaking of which, the third critical feature of any printer is that no subscription is required. Some printers nowadays will pressure you or try to trick you into signing up for a monthly subscription in order for them to work. They frame this as a way to save money on toner, and don't do it. Don't take the bait, because if you don't pay, or if the internet goes out, or if there's a server outage on the printer's website, your printer won't work. Also, if you have a subscription and you buy the wrong toner, the company will break your printer on purpose. And this can also happen if the company thinks you printed too many pages. These subscriptions are a terrible, terrible deal. Avoid them at all costs. All right, so what printer do I recommend? I recommend the Brother HL2460DW, and I'll have an affiliate link to that specific printer on Amazon in the blog version of this episode and in the description down below the YouTube video. This is an excellent printer for around $180. Brother makes very reliable laser printers. Just make sure to avoid that optional subscription. If you go to the page on Amazon, you'll see a lot of one-star reviews, but if you read those reviews, they're almost all people who regretted getting the subscription, which was optional. So don't get it. The free trial is a trap. All right, so let's talk about some optional features. There's 3 features that you might find useful, and those are copy, scan, and a document feeder. So for copy, you actually probably don't need this. I haven't used the copy functionality on my printer in years, maybe ever. In a world of email and websites and PDFs, there's not a lot of need to photocopy a piece of paper. For scanning, You might think that you need this, but I found that I've done most of my scanning recently with my phone. I just snap pictures in the Dropbox app on my phone and it turns it into a document on my Dropbox automatically. That said, the third feature, a document feeder, could be really handy if you need to scan long documents. So the document feeder will feed in one page at a time. And so if you need to scan a 20-page contract or you need to scan in a book that you printed before your computer crashed, the document feeder could be a lifesaver. Typically, you'll find all three of these features on a multifunction printer. And the multifunction printer that I recommend is the Brother DCP L2640DW. I purchased an earlier version of this printer 10 or 15 years ago, and it still works great. These things last forever. You can find this one on Amazon for about $210, depending on the day. And the cost per page with generic toner is around a penny per page, is what I'm paying. So it's a really inexpensive printer. It's very reliable and it does everything I need it to do. Now, with any modern printer, you must be careful during the setup process to avoid all subscriptions. And they will try to trick you. This is my one knock against Brother, is that they'll try to trick you during the setup to get a subscription. So keep an eagle eye out while clicking next, and you won't need the subscription to make the printer work. And no, you really don't need color. A lot of authors who spend way too much money for color when 99% of all of their printing is black and white. So let's say over the 10 years of life of your laser printer, you need to print color 3 times. So what do? Well, you just go to your nearest UPS store or your nearest Kinko's or Office Max or Office Depot, and you print in color there for a few bucks and you go on your way. This is the same approach I recommend for buying a car. Buy the car you need to use every day and rent the car that has the special features you need for vacation. Don't spend dollars to save yourself from spending pennies. Almost all of the printing that you do, almost all of the time, is in black and white, and so the printer you should buy should be geared at black and white. So, what kind of printer do you have? Do you like it? Do you hate it? Let us know in the comments down below. Feel free to share your horror stories, particularly, and warn us of anything to keep an eye out for. Our featured patron today is Nanette Potter, author of Deception's Edge. Deception's Edge is a high-stakes thriller about Blade, a professional knife thrower obsessed with finding her mother's killer. But when her friend is captured in North Korea, Blade sets aside vengeance and joins the secret Soldati di Cristo for a desperate mission. With time running out and danger on every side, Blade must choose what matters more: justice, survival, or redemption. Nanette, thank you so much for being a patron of the Novel Marketing Podcast. Thank you for your support that helps keep this podcast on the air. I could not do this without the support of you and the other patrons. The Novel Marketing Podcast is a production of authormedia.com, and you can find the blog version of this episode at authormedia.com/481. And that has links to all of the printers, the specific printers I talked about. I'm Thomas Umstattd Jr. saying thank you for listening and live long and prosper.